should be yourself, King. Should be yourself. And really the greatest thing that you could be is to be yourself.
What's up, everybody? This is the Ike podcast, and today I have a great guest named George Mumford. George is a sports psychologist. He's an author and a global speaker, and he has a lot of fascinating stories to tell in regards to sports. And I'm honored to have him on. And if you're into the NBA or if you're into sports, this is the podcast for you. So thank you for coming on, George. And
my pleasure, Ike.
Appreciate it. And I'm curious, man. What would you say? What does a sports psychologist do? Because I think you're the first sports psychologist I have on the platform, and I feel like, I don't know too much about it. So let's start there.
Okay, let's start with the nomenclature. So basically, I would be referred to as a sports psychology consultant.
Gotcha.
Okay, but that's not really. I mean, that's a handle that people are comfortable with.
Yeah.
Okay. So depending on the venue, I could be a personal organizational development consultant, a teacher, performance coach. There's all sorts of names that people run around with. But what I do is I basically sometimes I've been referred to as the performance whisperer. So my main thing is performance, and it's not just athletes. I work with people from Yale to jail, from locker rooms to boardrooms. As long as you have a mind and body, I can work with you. And my job is to release the divine spark, or the master within, the Buddha nature, the Christ consciousness, whatever. I mean, I say it like that, but ultimately the idea is for you to be who you really are. There's only one of you, and there's never going to be another one like you. Never was, never will be. And our job is to be who we are.
Yes.
To be our authentic divine self.
Yeah. I personally believe God put us here to essentially be ourselves. And I remember someone told me, someone said, "Hey, do you want to know how to get into heaven?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And then he's like, "Well, the only way is you got to be yourself." Like he said, if you're not being yourself, then you can't get in heaven. I thought that was really profound. But
it is profound. Because it's challenging for us to realize we some bad mofos. Speaking the language of Optimus Prime, and people don't know who he is, but that's
I know who he is.
But that's a Transformers. But the thing is, to thine own self be true. You hear it all the time. Know thyself. There's something about this idea of having the courage to be who you are, regardless of what other people think or say, because there's a lot of people out there that will want to tell you who you are, or who they think you are, who they think you should be. And the first choice you make as a leader is the choice of being yourself, because that's what makes us really amazing. Is we have the power of choice. Whether we are consciously choosing or not, we're making a choice. And so the idea is to embrace your greatness, find the flow, discover success. And that's to embrace the fact that we have self-awareness. And as a result of having self-awareness, we can self-regulate. That means we can regulate our thoughts, feelings, behaviors, even how we interpret things. Because we talk about the proverbial glass being half empty, half full. Both are right. But there's a significant difference when you are observing your experience from the half empty versus the half full.
Yeah. And so, George, one of the things you're most well known for is your work with Kobe Bryant, and talking about being yourself. I know I've heard and read that you helped Kobe Bryant be himself, which is such an interesting thing. Can you talk about that and your experience with Kobe?
Yes. So it really, no matter who I'm working with, it's always, to me, I look at it this way. Michelangelo, the great sculptor, back in the day, he was probably getting interviewed by some media or some social network. So, social network, whatever they had. Anyway, they say, "Hey man, how do you create these masterpieces?" And he said, "All I do is release the masterpiece that's already inside the marble." Or sometimes he refers to it as an angel or whatever, but it's just to chip away what's already there. And so when I was engaging with with Kobe, it wasn't that I was trying to do anything other than to help him release his divine spark. As a matter of reason with that. And of course, each person's going to do it in a different manner, in a different, because we're all different. So we have to do it based on our nature. So it's an inside job. You have to know who you are, so you can be who you are, so you can express who you are, so you can share who you are. And that who you are is a becoming. It's not a static thing. It's something that's evolving. It's moving. And I read somewhere, I don't remember where I read the quote, but it talked about us, a person as a person. We're not fixed points. We are ever changing events. So my job was to just help him express himself honestly.
Yeah.
Uncover that in the context of basketball. But the thing is, who you are as a person is going to show up on the court or on the pitch or in the swimming pool or on the dance floor or in a boardroom. It doesn't matter, what your position is, but wherever you go, there you are. And so knowing who you are and understanding how to be yourself, the best version of yourself, and to share it with the rest of us for the highest good, that's the bomb.
Gotcha. What did that help with Kobe Bryant look like, and what in particular was he like really appreciative of, like when working with you?
Well, he wrote a quote for my book. Basically, he said I helped him just to be, and so you're not. So really, it's like, so you're not compelled by fear, desire. You're just being yourself, holding your center, and just being. And when you're being and you're being real, like authenticity, just being who you are, like whatever you're feeling, whatever you're doing, can you say yes to that, and at the same time, in spite of that, make a choice in that space between stimulus and response that's in alignment with who you say you are or what makes you feel most alive. You understand? So the idea is to be fully alive, to be, as Bruce Lee would say, martial arts is to honestly express yourself. That's another way of saying that you have an intention and then you're able to execute that intention, and you're out of your own fulfillment and potentialities, out of your own, out of who you are in your own unique way. And the only way you know that is to be still and know, is to get with yourself and realize this. When I do this, I feel most alive. I feel like I'm being myself. I feel like I'm in alignment with who I was put here to be.
Yeah. So it sounds like a lot of what you're talking about is dealing with meditation and being still. And when I first heard about the topic of meditation, it was several years ago when I was in college. And if I'm being honest, I thought it was BS, because it was like there was some.
Yeah. So did I. When I was in college, I felt the same way. Give me a brew and get out of my face.
Yeah. And honestly, there was just like, it was like some like old like white female teacher who was like, the way she presented it sounded kind of like weird. Like she's like, oh, I just like did nothing for 5-10 minutes every day, and like my life changed. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Well, he's talking about in the Bible, be still and know.
Yes.
So there's mindfulness in the Bible. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. You understand what I'm saying? But we have these ideas, so we get a concept, and then we have a picture of what that means. And when I say, so you can say meditation, prayer, whatever, but the ultimate reality is, can you be here now authentically in this unfolding unknown moment? Can you just say yes to that and be there and fully engaged, fully deployed in that moment? So the techniques or the ways of developing a habit of being present for your life in the moment, and being able to see things in new and fresh ways, that is what is the ideal. I mean, when you're performing at a high level, you got to be in the moment. You can't be compelled by fear or desire. You have to come from your center, coming from your place for no reason. It's almost like you can't even have a guiding idea, because the reality is when we perform, we do something, we don't have control over the outcome. I have no idea. But we have control over the effort we make and the attitude we have in that context of being in the moment. And so there's a couple of philosophers actually, they describe meditation. And it's, I got my mind on money, money on my mind. That's meditation. So you want to say Snoop Dogg and,
Snoop Dogg, the philosopher.
Yeah, they're philosophers, man. And Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
Because you're meditating from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep. Once again, you go to the Bible. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
Yes.
So, everything began with the word. So come on now. You see what I'm saying? But we put things in a box and say, okay, that, and it's very limited view. But from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep, my mind is on something.
Yes.
And even when I'm sleeping, I have no control over what my mind is doing. But when I'm awake, some people make being woke or awake a bad thing. Where it's not a bad thing to be present, to really be able to see things clearly. Because when you see things clearly, you can behave clearly.
Yeah.
And so this idea, so we got to get out of this, because I thought it was woo-woo. They told me all this stuff. And I didn't do it when I was in college. But when my butt got on fire and I had chronic pain and substance abuse, I started going back to, back when I used to go to Sunday school, whatever, going back to the scripture, going back to, what we call the spiritual truths.
Yes.
They come in different language, and just being able to say, okay, I have a problem, and accepting that. And then once I accepted it, I could do something about it. And so this idea of meditation, whatever, we're meditating from the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep. And what it is, and when you look up the word meditate, it says to contemplate. To contemplate means to look at repeatedly or look at closely. So we some bad mofos, because whatever we hold in mind, we manifest. So you become what you think about. That's the strangest secret, written by Earl Nightingale. I can go to the Bible, I can go to different psychology, philosophy, whatever. It's basically saying the same thing.
Yeah.
You don't have to take my word for it, check it out. But the challenge is we don't know what is on our mind, and we don't know what our mind is on.
Yeah.
And so we're creating what we're getting. And I would say, people would say nature, nurture. We are who we are based on the choices we have made. Period. See, because when you get into the spirit, when you get into that energy, when you get into that quiet place inside of you, we have this ability with spiritual will to overcome even our genes, because in a certain consciousness, they don't get fired up. They don't get activated. You understand what I'm saying? And you can grow up in an environment and go beyond your environment by the process of choice, by choosing, okay, this is what my conditioning is. This is my impulses, but I can change that. I can reprogram that. But if I don't know I can reprogram that, then I'm going around thinking I'm in control, and I have no idea what I'm creating. And so, and part of the problem is, and this is why I'm going to say this, one reason why people don't want to be awake, and one reason why people don't want to see clearly, is because they don't want to assume the responsibility that comes with that. There's something, and so you hear them, they do the B and D. What's the B and D? Blame and denial. It's always some person, place, a thing, but never them. You see what I'm saying? And it's always this or that. You get in an argument, and then they want to prove a point instead of just saying, no, just take responsibility for how you are living. Who you are, who you have become, is a product of choice, not a product of nature or nurture.
Be still and know that I am God. That is Psalm 46, verse 10. That's and right. I absolutely love that quote. And when we talk about meditation, I feel like everything you're saying is, I definitely feel like it's truth. But I feel like the problem why people don't want to do it or do it enough is there doesn't seem to be like a practical thing. But then that seems to contradict the nature of meditation, because you're supposed to meditate with no intention, but literally being still and experiencing who you are. But people are like, well, what's the point of this if I'm not going to get X, Y, and Z,
Yeah, well, meditation is, you have a now view of meditation. Meditation is the way I look at meditation is not just being still and know, it's understanding, seeing things clearly, but it's also understanding what thoughts, but behavior is how am I responding? So let's say I want to be loving.
Okay.
So I can be on the cushion. It's easy to be loving or be in a chair or be in a church, be in a pew, and sing hymns and scripture or be by yourself. But then when you get with other people and you get around stuff, then you gotta embody that. So you can see the greatest commandment is to love God with all your mind, heart, and soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Now therein lies the rub, because we don't love ourselves, we don't love our neighbors, and then we take it to the nth degree. Like we gotta love everybody else before we love ourselves. We gotta be a good Samaritan to our neighbors, but not ourselves. And the reality is, you got to begin with yourself, not to end with yourself. So you're part of that, because I and the other are one. So if he's talking about loving your neighbor, he's also talking about loving yourself. And so when I love you, all that I give is given to me. The Course of Miracles talks about that. It's like, so you become what you think about, but then what you give, you get back. So you are what you give, and what you give is what you are. And so if you want, so we talk about, okay, so you want love. Well, to get love, you got to be love. To get peace, you got to be peace. And so, what does that mean? When I say be in peace, that means your thoughts are coming from that idea of peace. Your feelings have to be in alignment with being able to be peaceful. And when you're not peaceful, or when you have that first, whatever it is, anger, that irritation, whatever, the job is to notice it and to be able to embrace it, feel it without being identified with it and without acting out of that. And see, it takes a lot, and that's why if it was easy, everybody be doing it.
Yeah.
But it means that you have to. It's not just meditating is not enough. You got to do the 10 Commandments. You got to love God with all your mind, heart, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. Now, the interesting thing is, God is not out there. God is in here. The only way you can meet your maker. This is why when you get into religion and you get into, you get stuck in these ways of being, you can only be a Christian or Muslim or a Jew or whatever. We get stuck in the doctrine instead of being living it and being. And so and so when we talk about Jesus, well, okay, Jesus, Christ is a person, but it's really a level of consciousness. It's a Christ consciousness. So it embodied in a person, but it's like being that Christ consciousness or that Buddha nature or that Kuan Yin energy. It's like being in that energy. So we get hung up in the doctrine, or it has to be a certain person, or you have to believe in Jesus Christ. No, believing ain't going to get it done. You got to imitate. You got to do what he's doing. If you're going to be that, if you're going to get into that consciousness, then you got to understand, how do I get into that Christ consciousness? Because it's not a person, it's a consciousness which we all have access to. Whether you call it Buddha nature, Christ consciousness, the divine spark, it doesn't matter. It's there and we can access it. And so one way to access it is be still and know. But when you are being still and know, then that knowing is going to impact how you speak, feel, and behave, and how you relate to self and other. And you gotta go through the whole thing. I and the other are one. So you got to get beyond this illusion of separateness. And so when you see somebody, when I see people, I see their Christ consciousness. I see the divine spark. I don't see their behavior, and not that I don't. It doesn't matter. But if I remember that, just like me, they're a child of God, or they have this divinity, they have this bad mofo-ness, if you want to call it that way, then, and it's interesting because when you treat people how, so this is really challenging. Why? Because what it's saying to me, I don't know you, right, on some level, but I know you. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
When I'm relating to you as a divine spark, that's a total different relationship. So even though you could be yelling at me, you could be doing all kinds of things, but if I know that, okay, that's not his real self, that's he's doing what he's doing, or he's feeling a certain thing and he's expressing himself, but I have to remember that he's whole, perfect, and complete as is. He just doesn't know it. And so be still be still and know, but it's also be still until you know. That's one of my choices. Because
Oh,
sometimes you have to meditate on stuff, and you know you got to wait for the truth to be
sure,
revealed
yeah.
to you. So 'cause everything everything that we ever learn or ever will be is already presented. You want to call it the Cosmic Records or the World Wide Web, whatever. But it's you gotta access. You can access it if you can be still and listen. So when I say something, you say, "Oh, it's true." It's true because a part of you knows it to be true.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm doing is reminding you who you are, or reminding you things you already know
Mm.
on a deep level. But we're up here, it's a still small voice that's easily drowned out, and we're not able to listen to it and get guidance because the more you listen to it, the louder it gets.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying? So I'm
Yeah.
talking. So I can go. I'm not.
No, no. Everything you're saying.
I'm just saying this is how you do it. So when you look at Kobe and or whoever, but let's just say Kobe, and he's in flow. He's in now. When he's in flow, or I'll put it to you this way: it's his last game. Shaq said, "Give me 50," and Kobe said, "No, I'm not. I can't do it. It's not like that, dude. It's like I'm going to show up and see what happens."
Yeah.
And he show up, and he scored 60, okay, or whatever it was. But you scored 60 by not trying to score 60, and that was one of the first encounters we had. And I talked to him about it years later, and he remembered everything I told him. But I told him it was in first year working with him. He's warming up for a game. It's game time. And I'm walking around, and I said, and he acted like he was trying to score 35 points on each shot. So
Mm.
I said, "Hey, Kobe, the best way to score is not to try to score. Let the game come to you. Just because here's what you're doing in a linear fashion. Here's what he was doing. I want to score 32. So that means 4 quarters. I got to get 8 points each quarter. So in the first quarter, if you only get 2 points, now you got to make up those 6 points, and you're trying to fabricate things, and it's better because then now you're really limiting yourself to 32 points instead of scoring as many as you can based on what's happening." So he had 16 points in the first period.
Wow. Yeah.
See, because he was limiting himself to 8. Okay, you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But
I hear what you're
if
saying.
you be still till then being still and say, "Okay, here's an opportunity. I'm going to do
Be
this.
still.
This is the rhythm." And you find the rhythm of the game. And when you're in flow, you're not there. There's no self-consciousness.
So
You're not there. You're just letting the spirit flow through you. You're being spontaneous.
be still until you know. That's actually very interesting. I want to talk about this in application to my life because so every day for the past couple of weeks, I would before I go to bed, I would meditate and and dream about everything that I want. Whether it's this podcast, relationships, whatever is important to me. And I would meditate for about 10 to 15 minutes. But I'll meditate and visualize what I want to happen for the next day or for the next occurring weeks. And sometimes they happen, sometimes it doesn't. What does I'm curious, George, like for you, what does your process of meditation know? Like, do you literally just stop until you get at like some type of like until you know something or a truth or like what
Yeah,
does that
this
look
is
like
very
for you?
important
Yeah.
because it's the same thing I told Kobe. You just you form the intention, and then
Okay.
you just focus on the moment and focus on the process. Because some stuff, you might not be in the right mind, or what you want might be contrary to what you really want. So
Mm.
so it's like so it could take a while. I mean, so we're looking at it and you're going in with a gaining idea. So I'm doing this in order to get something.
Mm.
That's not how it works. You can't have a
Mm.
gaining idea because now you're telling you know better than what God knows or the universe knows.
That's
You just got to be
true.
careful what you're asking for. But then whether you get it or not, and it's in its own time. You might want something and you might not get for 40 years.
Yeah.
But are
It-
you going to have the faith to stay true to it and stay on task, stay on what you want? Because on some level, I'll be honest with you, people say follow your heart, but you got to train your heart before you can follow it.
mm.
So that
Mm.
you're living in the way things are in alignment with how things seem to work. And so I can say I want to be 7 foot. I'm gonna pray and meditate and everything. And it didn't happen, George. What's up with that? Well, something you ask for something that's not you being unrealistic in what you want. And
Yeah.
so some of us have the opposite, where we don't want anything, or we're playing small instead of playing big. So it depends on our conditioning. But ultimately, what we want to do is we want to be able to understand that you have to do it with no gaining idea. So if you think about what I said to Kobe, it's like he didn't have any. He was just open to the moment and whatever the moment had, and be still and know. That means, so in the moment, it's clear when you should shoot. It's clear when there's an opportunity. When you're not forcing something, it's just in the flow of the game. So
Mm.
so be still and know isn't just about sitting and being quiet. It means in your life, as you are moving through word, thought, and speak, word, thought, and behavior, you are manifesting that. So, like, one of my practices over years has been, and I got it. It's interesting. I got it from the Sleeping Prophet, Ike Casey. He called it attunement and application,
Mm.
and all of his readings were based on the Bible. I can talk
Mm.
about Neville Goddard, the Bible, Dr. David Hawkins, the Bible, the Scripture. They use the Scripture, and that kind of get them access to the Spirit, right?
Mm.
And he would. What do I want to say about? So he said attunement and application. So it's a vibration. Thoughts are vibration. E equals MC squared. It's energy, right?
Yes.
So he would say, you meditate and you let the love flow through you. So you attune the love. So I'm meditating, I'm tuning the love, and let's say somebody I don't like comes up. Well, then I have to maybe forgive them, or just tolerate them, or wish them well, or whatever, right? But now I'm setting the vibration. And so once I have the vibration and an attunement, I'm in alignment with the love energy, with that, whatever it is. And then when I go out, the application is to be loving. Forgive, I and the other one, forgive your enemies, instead of you conquer hate through love. And so that's the Christ consciousness of being like Christ, or Buddha. They all say the same thing. They're always talking about, love your enemies, or love everything. And so to me, my interpretation of the teaching of Jesus is continual forgiveness and love everything.
Mm. Mm.
Forgive
Yeah.
yourself, others, and that sort of thing. So these are like simple things, but I can tell you, I've been doing this for a long time. It's one of my meditations, is when I am in that love energy, now I can be more loving. So you got to be loved. So I have to, and when you love something, you make it grow. So that you could talk about. So if I love speaking in public,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm going to have to use, I have to have the knowledge. What does that look like? But I have to have care and respect for it, and responsibility for it.
Mm.
So there's a book called The Art of Loving, and he talks about when you love somebody, you care for them, you respond to their desires, but you respect them as they are, not as you would like them to be. But you have to have the knowledge of who they are, so you can care for them, so you can respect them, so you can respond to them. And so I would say that for each of us, we have to do that for our individual selves. I have to care for myself, and so whatever I do, I'm expanding myself, but if I love it, I make it grow. So that means dealing with discomfort. That means getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. That means generosity. I don't like the word sacrifice. I like generosity better. So being
Mm.
generous, being given to yourself, but you're extending yourself for the goodness of someone else or whatever. So when you love somebody, and M. Scott Peck talked about this in his book, The Road Less Traveled, that you extend yourself to help the person grow. And when you grow, you're not just growing mentally, emotionally, you're also growing spiritually. And so you let them grow, even if it means they grow and they go and leave you. Your job is just to help them to grow. And
Mm.
so these are spiritual concepts that require uh, tremendous discipline. It requires, and he talks about discipline of delaying gratification, especially you know, instant gratification. He talks about this idea of being responsible.
Ye-
If you're not responsible, if you're doing a B and D, then you're not responsible. If you're not responsible, then you don't have any shot at choosing or being self-led, or being able to live according to who you say you are, your core values, and your worthy cause.
Yeah. Well, when I think about meditation, perhaps I would say the primary reason why I do it is this profound sense of acceptance, where you essentially accept everything for what it is instead
Yep.
of trying to control things. Like,
Yep.
for example, like if I'm having a podcast and out of nowhere someone says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it," or like whatnot, it's like, okay, I accept that. And then not only do I accept the bad things in life, I accept the good things in life too. Like the fact that George Mumford is here to talk to me, I'm very accepting of that. I ain't complaining, and I'm gonna roll with with what God has given me. And so I think acceptance is perhaps the best thing that comes with meditation, because it leads to this mindset where I feel like you're very even killed and steady, because you don't go down or up when things are like, um
You're not compelled by fear, desire. You hold your center and you stay to thine own self be true. You stay to being here. Okay, that happens. But it's interesting you say that, because I talk about the 4 A's.
Mm.
And the 4 A's are awareness. That's mirror mind. Just saying, being aware of something, whatever's in front of you. Because I do At Home with George every week, and we begin out by creating the possibility of saying yes, embracing whatever comes up, saying yes to it. So this idea of awareness, being aware of something. So I was aware that I had substance abuse issues or I had chronic pain, but I couldn't accept it because I would deny or blame somebody else for it, right? So, but once I accepted it, and there's, in the 12-step, there's a whole section on acceptance, and I used to read I used to meditate on that for 2 years because I didn't have acceptance. So accepting it, but when you accept something, you could go through the grieving process. Because you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So you would go through bargaining. Oh God, if you just get me through this, denial, or and then you got anger, then you have depression, then you have acceptance. But to get through that, it's not linear. It's non-linear. So you could be stuck in one of those, but until you go through it, but you can, in a moment, you can just say no to, say yes to something. Say yes, this is what's happening. I don't like it. It's uncomfortable. But once I accept it, so the awareness, the acceptance, then you can do the compassionate action. And then once you do the compassionate action, then you can do the assessment afterwards, what worked, what didn't work, and all of that. Reflect, because true understanding comes from reflecting on experience. So when you make a mistake, it's an opportunity to grow and ask yourself, what do you need to learn and practice, or so that I'm able to do that. That's why people think you pray and you get something and that's it. But it's the struggle to get what you need to get, where you get the real learning, where you get the real breakthrough, because now it's something you earn and you understand it, so you can help other people. So to understand, then to be understood, that's one of, you go into St. Francis and he talks about that. But here's the point. The point is, you're right, that by being still and coming from that space where it is, you're just saying yes to life, you got a real shot at peace and a real shot at clarity.
Yeah. And in addition to that, I feel like a lot of wisdom comes from being still. At least I would think so.
He's telling no.
Yeah.
You're trying to make it up. Yes,
Yeah.
because go ahead.
No, I would say a lot of wisdom comes from being still, because I feel like in the stillness, God speaks to us most clearly, and there's so many distractions nowadays. I haven't had the. I'm only 30 years old, so I don't know what it was like to live in the 1960s or 1970s. But I feel like we're in the time in our lives where there's more distractions than everywhere. At least online, digitally, there's 1,000 gurus.
That's right.
It's just crazy, and I feel overwhelmed by it. And I'm like, all right, this guy's telling me to meditate. This guy's telling me to like do this. This guy's telling me to do X, Y, Z. This guy's telling me to believe in Buddha. Like, and it's just like, bro, what do I do? It's like, at this point, I'm like, sorry, social media, I gotta take a break and just lean into me,
Yeah, and one of the things that the Buddha said was, don't believe, see if it's true.
Yeah,
Don't believe what I tell you, see if it's true. So you have to take the responsibility to trust but verify, and to kind of see that. But you hit on an interesting point, because there's so much noise and clutter. There's no space to be, and the I think it comes from Asia. But when you curse somebody, you would say, "May you be born in interesting times."
Mm-hmm.
So, well, what does that mean, George? That means that if you're so interested in things out here, you'll never get to understand what's in here. So all that noise and clutter, and please be aware of the fact that people are escaping freedom, because freedom means being responsible. And so and you can see this happening worldwide, especially in this country. There's a book called Escape from Freedom by Eric Fromm. He wrote it based on what happened in Germany in the 1930s and Hitler and whatnot. And he said people escape freedom by authoritarianism, by conformism, and by destructive. So because it's an interesting thing. Speaking of philosophers, Soren Kierkegaard, the philosopher, said that one side of the coin is freedom or potential, and the other side of the coin is anxiety, uncertainty. They come together. He actually referred to it as the alarming possibility of being able. Think about that.
Wow.
So when we talk about development, and we don't go there. We don't go with, there's two sides of that. There's a lot of anxiety, like Kobe, as any other athlete. Anxiety is in your face all the time, 24/7. You got all that freedom and that potential, but it's whether you embrace the anxiety, like you said, you accept it and say, okay, this just means I'm closer to flow, because we spend most of our time between boredom and anxiety.
Yeah.
So when we're bored, that means that we have high skills and we're not challenged. And if we're challenged beyond our skills, then you're going to feel anxious. But if you can continue to develop your skills and continue to challenge yourself so that you're always out of your comfort zone, because if you're not out of your comfort zone, you're not growing. And I talk about getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. But if you embrace both the potential and anxiety, once again, it's whole-mindedness. It's saying yes to both. And then saying, okay, so what's it teaching me? What's the lesson? That's the growth mindset. What's the lesson? So the anxiety is telling me I'm out of my comfort zone. And sometimes the anxiety is overwhelming, and it's just telling me I need to dial it back a little bit. But some people feel the anxiety, they dial it all the way back. I'm not talking about dialing it back. So you're comfortable, you get comfortable being uncomfortable. So it's manageable. Just a little bit out of your comfort zone. Now, some of us, like I'm a type A personality without hostility. They say the flow genome is you got to get anxious up to about maybe 4%. But for somebody like me, probably 20 or 30. For somebody else, it might be 1 or 2. Yeah. So that's why you got to know who you are and what your tolerance level is, and how you can keep building, getting comfortable being uncomfortable, so you can tolerate the discomfort, knowing that the discomfort is going to get you to where you need to go. And I referred to it. I was working with this volleyball team, female volleyball team, and I was trying to get them to get out of their comfort zone. And they said, George, we want something softer, easier. And, and I said, I wasn't upset about it, but I said, something? No struggle, no swag. I said, I got swag. I earned that. This is a swag. What you going to do? Like Cool in the Game. What you going to do? Are you going to get up? What you going to do? And that is it. And when you embrace that, now it's not a problem. And I didn't think about this, and I don't have it. I don't know if I have it with me, but M. Scott Peck talked about his first line in his book. He was on Oprah years ago.
Okay.
The first line in his book is, "Life is difficult." Think about that. He starts off his book, "Life is difficult," and I'm trying to find the thing on it. I can read it to you, but basically what he's saying is life is difficult. But once you accept, once again, your word, accept that life is difficult, you accept and understand it, then it's no longer difficult.
Yeah. It is just rather the nature of life. When you say no struggle, no swag, I love that. I used to say no pain, no gain, but I might just say
that works.
No struggle, no gain.
Yeah.
But yours is cooler though. No struggle, no swag.
Yeah, well, it came out of that wisdom. So I want to go back to what you said about the silence. Yeah. So the thing is, I call it the eye of the hurricane. You can call it a lot of things, but out of that silence, there's a wisdom and creativity that you can't even.
Yes.
You that goes beyond just prescription. Description. Yes. And so when you're in flow, and you're just, another word for flow is spontaneity of your own will. You don't even know what you're going to do, but you're being still, and you just know. There's a knowing that comes out of that in activity where you just do that. And the people say, "How do you know to do it?" I said, "It just happened." It's just because I got clear, and that out of that wisdom, out of that silence comes the answer. And it comes and it comes out. And so the creativity and the wisdom, the knowing, but also being creative, just making stuff up, just creating on the fly. And that's it. So that's a huge thing. So to be still and know, out of that silence is where all the wisdom and creativity comes from. It might give you access to what they call the Akashic records, where everything that ever was or will be is already stored. So we get access like Edgar Casey. He could do a reading and he say, okay, so Ike lives in so-and-so place. This is what's going on. He needs to do this. Boom. And all he's doing is tapping in to the database, which they call the Akashic records.
Yeah, man. I'm actually really glad, George, that we're spending a lot of time on the topic of meditation, because I feel like it's a incredible skill that once harnessed can just change the way you live and everything you do. I know it has for me. And for me, like, what made me, because you and I, we both thought like meditation was BS in college. For me, what made me actually really start to think and like consider meditation was I would watch Kobe Bryant interviews, and he talked about it.
That's right.
And that was really fascinating to me, because usually when I think about meditation, I'm thinking about it from a spiritual sense. But the way, like, meditation, the act of meditation, if you just think about it, you're sitting down and doing nothing. That is completely different than basketball, where you're just like, boom, 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 I'm jumping in that. So I'm like, how the hell is meditation like infused into such a physical sport?
Yes. Well, studying Tai Chi for all those years and whatnot, my teacher used to say, there's movement and stillness and movement.
I like
and so this idea, so the moving eye of the hurricane. And so the thing is, but people don't understand. You don't understand that. So we call it in this, in sports psychology, domain. We have this idea of what do I want to say? Outcome, expectation. You expect certain things to happen, and that's what happens. And so it's you understand that we call it forethought. So everything you're thinking about, I'll just use my example. When I first started talking, because I was very shy and I would shake when I get up at the podium because I was so nervous. But what happened was that I once I understood that. How do I want to say this? So I would get up there and I was shaking, and the more I tried not to shake, the more I shook. And so I started reflecting on it. I was in graduate school, and there's this gentleman by the name of Victor Frankl, and he called it paradoxical intention. He said, so once again, a form of acceptance, instead of trying not to shake, embrace it and say yes to it. And I said, okay, I'm going to be a shaking fool. I'm going to be the best shaker there ever was. And I stopped shaking. So meditation isn't just about being still. It's about getting access to wisdom and starting to reflect on. So once you get quiet, you're going to ask yourself, well, how do I how do I overcome this? Or what's in the way, and how can I use that as a stepping stone rather than a roadblock? So it's creating your consciousness where you can actually see better and think better. There's actually Robert Fredrickson, it's called the broad and build theory. When you're when you're in love, when you're in a positive emotion, your cognitive function is enhanced, and you have more access to that creativity, that knowingness and creativity. So that's the thing. So people don't understand that. They don't understand that. Yeah, that's the self-regulation I talked about. It's like you have to begin. You begin with the word, and like the Bible, whatever, with the breath. Breath is life, or whatever. But if you are looking at it from half empty, you are in the reptilian brain. This is millions of years old. That all it knows is fight, flee, freeze, or fawn, which means bend the knee. Okay.
Mhm.
And I won't get into the reproduction stuff, but that's what it does. That's all it's about. It's all about on an animal level. So we have the reptilian brain, but we have the middle brain, which is, where emotions and, and a lot of other things, sexuality and a lot of other things. So we can get emotionally hijacked. So something happens. And so the impulse goes right to the amygdala, and we're in a fight. We're in that reptilian brain, or we can create the ability to go to the prefrontal cortex so that we can create space between stimulus and response. And in that space, we have the freedom and power to choose. Instead of getting hijacked, we can think about what is it we're going to do, or we can program ourselves. When I get in this situation, my idea is to love, or you said it, my idea is just to accept what's going on. See, the meditation gives you access to that stuff. So it's not separate. Meditation and life is all,
Yes.
it's not this one, because to me, I study a lot. I reflect on scripture. I reflect on how things are, what's true north. And so I'm principle centered. So what is it so important about principles? Principles are universal, timeless, and self-evident, which means I can observe them. And when I'm off, I know I can get the information and get back on track. And so that's what I'm saying. So you don't have to believe in gravity. But if you jump off a 5-story building, you can't say, well, time out. You're going down. But just like if you jump up, you got to come down. You don't have to believe in gravity, but that's how things are. And so when you meditate and you start getting clear and say yes to things, you're starting to accept the way things are, so you can align yourself with how things work.
Mm. Yeah, and then I think in addition to what you're saying, another thing that's powerful about meditation is once you start to accept not only like what's going on and in outside, but inside, your emotions, the negative emotions start to dissipate and go away. And the interesting thing about meditation is whenever I'm meditating and I'm just, blocking out the world, I naturally just feel good. I don't know about you, but like my natural
Oh
state
yeah,
is
yeah.
feeling
Letting
good.
go, man.
Yeah.
Listen. One of the meditation masters, Ajahn Chah from the Thai forest tradition, he said, "When I let go a little bit, I have a little peace. When I let go a lot, I have a lot of peace. When I let
Mm.
go completely, I have complete peace." So now you're starting to see. But here's what I would suggest:
Okay.
things you might discover if it's true for you. But what you see out here is a reflection of what's in here. You meet what you mirror.
Mm.
And sometimes we get confused. We think it's coming from out here. No, it comes from here. I'll give you an example. Some people feel like, okay, if I get the job or the relationship, or if I get my mind to be still, then I'll be happy. Well, the research says you're happy first, and then you get the other stuff.
Yeah, when I'm talking to my podcasters, it seems like this concept is a very unique concept, but I something I think a lot about. So most people they want to do something to have something to be something,
That's right.
but I think it's the opposite. You want to
You
be
got it.
something to do something to have. So you know what I'm saying. And I think for an example is like, oh, okay, like I'm going to, I want to practice being loving or being happy in order to attract my soulmate. You know what I'm saying, and do the right thing. And instead of like instead of trying to get a girlfriend so I can be happy and become whole. The girl isn't gonna make you whole. No one's gonna make you whole but you and
That's right.
God. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly it. So you have to be the message. That's what Gandhi said. It
Yeah.
was an interesting story. He was meeting with a mother and her son, and the mother was asking him how to help her son not eat so many sweets.
Mm.
And he said, "Come back in 2 weeks." So so what he did was, because he didn't he was still eating sweets. So he gave up the sweets before he started talking. So you got to be the message.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying? See, because there's the verbal, the words, which is only like maybe 7% of the communication. The other 93 is nonverbal, and
Yes.
body language and tonality. And so the be the message is, and it's interesting because I feel this way. I teach what I need to learn.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand.
So, and why is that? Well, the best way to learn something is to teach it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the other side of that is the best way to keep something is to give it away.
Yeah.
So
That's so
the stuff that
interesting.
you already discovered by being still and going inside and accessing the masterpiece within, the creativity and the wisdom that goes beyond what we can even imagine. You know, you can't AI can't touch that one. Okay, well, how you program AI, it's not going to touch that one because be some bad mofos, like I said.
Yeah.
But we don't know it and we don't embrace it. We need to embrace it and realize, and it doesn't mean we can't use AI. Whatever. It's one thing is like to have rules, but not to be ruled by the rules. To have AI, but not to have the AI rule us. For
Mm,
us be able to do that because AI doesn't have compassion, doesn't have empathy,
yeah.
it
And if
doesn't have
anything,
it doesn't have a soul.
if anything, I feel like AI is and stuff like ChatGPT, they're a little too validating. I think it just gives you the answer based on whatever question you ask. If you know what I'm saying, I feel like is this if you ask it some type of question, is this gonna validate the response you're looking for? So I feel like even AI is somewhat a reflection of you, the way you ask the
Oh,
question.
that's why we have double blind studies because your intention
Yeah.
is gonna now we're getting into quantum physics, right? The intention and the attention. So you're actually, we talk about these waves of possibility, and so the collapse of the wave function, and you bring it into existence what your intention is, and we
Mm,
have intentions that are not conscious sometimes. You understand what I'm saying? That's why the
yeah.
meditation is about making what's hidden revealed, what's reactive, less reactive. It's about being able to be able to see things and to have more self mastery. Basically, is to be able to say, I can't control what happens to me, but I get to choose how I'm going to respond to it.
Hmm.
So when and Viktor Frankl called it the ultimate freedom, living in a concentration camp, he said that unavoidable freedom, unavoidable suffering, you can say yes to it. And by
Yeah.
saying yes to it, you get to choose your attitude. So I'll give you an example. When I was getting clean and my uncle came back to Boston, he had face
Sure.
cancer and whatnot, and he just said to me, "Hey man, why don't you come by and hang out?" Because he smoked weed and whatever. But he used to drink, but he was done with the radiation and whatnot. And I say, "Hey, uncle, I'm in this program. I stopped drinking. Because I was addicted to pain, drugs and alcohol, whatever." He said, "Okay." And so when he was dying, he decided he didn't want to take pain meds because he wanted to meet his maker with full consciousness.
Hmm.
Now, see, I wasn't proselytizing. I was being a message. You understand what I'm saying? You have no idea how it's going to impact people. I had other people start drinking. They said, "Man, I look at you." I said, "Man, I want what he has." So they stopped drinking. They didn't even have a drinking problem. You understand what I'm saying? But this
Yeah.
is what I'm saying. So being a message, people look at you more than they listen to you.
Mm,
Because you're
mhm.
speaking to them in that 93% by your tonality and your body language. And so when you are authentically being yourself, and when you are just being real, people got a BS meter, and there's something attractive that's like a charisma. That's something that people get drawn to.
Mm. Yeah, part of this podcast that I create is honestly a spiritual journey for myself. And it's a whole practice of just being myself and also deeply accepting who chooses to say yes to me and who doesn't. And it's very interesting. I'll be honest. Like I've noticed that people who say yes to me a lot are very spiritually inclined. And then a lot of the people who might say no, I feel like are egotistical or are a lot more into money and business. I've noticed like people who keep saying yes to me, and now I'm just accepting it. It's like, all right, whatever, God, you want me to keep talking to God fearing people? Cool, I'm gonna accept it. Like, but and then the conversations always turn into some type of spiritual evolution, and I'm like, all right, this is my life. Like, this is what it is, and I'm accepting it. You know?
Yeah. So you're vibrating at a certain level, and then people are at that level are going to gravitate. You meet what you mirror, right? And
Yeah.
and so now you start because you're telling the universe this is how I'm vibing, and the people like attracts light. Light attracts light. Not everybody
Yeah.
wants the light, man.
Yeah.
Everybody wants the light. And so just being able to say that, being a recovering perfectionist, that's been really challenging to accept people, because before I had this practice of reflecting on experience and really understanding myself and how I'm relating to others and how I can live in alignment with who I say I am and where I say I'm going, I used to chase rejection. Because I was programmed, and then chasing people, being loyal to people who didn't deserve loyalty, although everybody deserves loyalty, but somebody who's going to just betray your trust. If you're trusting them, you're not trusting somebody who you should be trusting, who you can trust. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. And I also just want to thank you for being vulnerable, George, and sharing your story about drug addiction, because I didn't know that. But hearing that is very inspiring, because it reminds me of this Bible verse. It's actually Romans chapter 5, verses 3 to 5. It says, "We rejoice in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame." And it seems like throughout your journey of dealing with drug addiction and getting out of that, it has developed this sense of spiritual foundation and inner peace that you probably wouldn't have gotten if it wasn't for that.
Well,
Right?
if it wasn't, I look at it this way. I was seeking John Barleycorn instead of the other spirit. But we all want that connection of being fully alive and that sort of thing. And it's interesting because, yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because it is just really understanding that, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, if you think about it that way. And if it wasn't for me connecting to the power source, God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, there was no way I could do what I was doing. And I remember a gentleman said to me, there will come a day when no power on this earth will keep you from a drink or a drug. And what he was referring, and this is what I loved about 12-step recovery, was I get to choose the concept I had of what a high power was, or God, or the universe. Because, and some people, Deepak Chopra wrote a book called Ways to Know God, or How to Know God, I think, and he talks about the 7 chakras, and he talks about people having a different level of God. So if you're in the reptilian brain, you have a wrathful God, and if you're in the heart space, you have a loving God, and all knowing God, and
Yes.
go up, and it's just your maturation in terms of how you were evolving and ascending, growing, getting consciousness. And one of the things that I learned in recovery was, at the consciousness level I was at when I got into recovery, at that consciousness level, a drink and a drug are the choices that are available to me. But as I improve my conscious contact and continue to go up at these choices, I have not only do I make different choices, but I attract different people to me. Like what you were speaking to.
That's interesting. And when you share your story of addiction, I feel like it's very helpful, because unfortunately, George, I've read and I believe that more than ever, addictions are actually becoming more and more common, because where people are more addicted than to drugs than ever. People are more addicted to pornography than ever. People are more addicted to video games than ever.
That's right.
And all these habits that aren't really like true to us. Maybe they're not, but too much of it is just bad. And I feel like a lot of it is due to a lack of purpose, and I don't know what to do with my life. So, and then it sounds like
it's a hideout. This is
Yes.
what Martin Buber in the Way of Man. Okay, so one of the things I should tell you, because I keep quoting these books.
Yeah.
So
You
today,
quoted at least 10 books, bro.
Yeah. So in 14 days, in 2 weeks, I'll be celebrating 41 years of sobriety.
Wow, that's
And
awesome.
and here's the interesting thing: over those 41 years, I've read over a book a week, at least.
Wow.
So
What
think
the?
about that.
Wow, like every
You
book,
talk
every
about
year,
the
every
Mamba
week.
mentality, right?
Yeah. Well, that's why you're like, I'm like, dude, you just keep talking about books. I mean, I love books. I read books all the time too, but it's like that's why you're so well read.
Yeah. So Martin Buber, he talked about in The Way of Man. He talks about that we lived in an encrusted shell,
Okay.
and we have a system of hideouts. And so he goes to the biblical story of Adam. And he said, when Adam was walking, well, actually, it was interesting because it was a Jewish sage was in a jail, and he was talking to his jailer, and he said, "Do you believe the Bible was true for all men at all times, or whatever?" And then he talked to him about, well, when God said to Adam, "Adam, wherefore art thou?" he was not asking him where he was physically. He knew where he was. He was asking him, okay, I've allotted 36 years or whatever it is to your life. What have you done from it for it? And so when he said, wherefore art you? He said, I hid myself from you because I didn't want to take responsibility for the way I was living. And when I hid myself from you, I was hiding myself from myself. And so you are seeing these systems of hideouts, even authoritarianism, even conformism, where people are just blending in, because if they have to accept their self, there's the anxiety and that responsibility that they can't blame it and put it on somebody else. They have to put some skin in the game. And you have the other people who, if they can annihilate the self, there won't be any fear of death. So they blow stuff up, and or they destroy themselves or others, or they get swallowed, or they want to swallow somebody, or they want to be swallowed. So somebody is taking care of them. And even when they do that, there's a resentment, because the self needs to be free. When it's not free, there's going to be resentment, and there's going to be illness, and there's going to be blocking off parts of ourselves, which is what I did. I used alcohol to hide out, and drugs, and just not being, just spacing out and not being present. And so you hit the nail on the head. And so and I would say I had a maladaptive coping mechanism to my fear of death, but my pain and my suffering and whatnot. But it's only by embracing it that I was able to learn from it. And that's why I had to keep focus on acceptance, because there was part of me didn't want to accept things. And once I accepted it, then I could do something about it.
Yeah, well, they say idle time is the devil's work. And usually when you have nothing to do, that's when the BS happens. I'm not gonna lie. If that's my life personally, when I have nothing to do, it's, oh, well, let me go do this or that or this. It's probably when there's a lack of purpose or a lack of excitement to do anything, actually, like this podcast. Even subconsciously, even if it's very little, I'm actually helping you with your sobriety journey, because we're not engaging in BS, and you're helping me. You know what I'm saying?
Well, this is the point, when two or more gathered in his name. I'm just saying, but here's the thing. The thing is a conversation environment that you have. And so to me, when I think about this and when I speak about this, and people will say to me, why do you talk about your sobriety? Well, because I share my experience, strength, and hope, so that other people realize. And I can't tell you how many times I give presentations to companies. I was just speaking at this one company, 1,000 people. And after the presentation, there was at least 2 or 3 people came over to me and talked about their sobriety, that they've been clean for so many years, but they didn't even want people to know about it.
Wow.
So there is this anonymity, which I appreciate. But when I speak about my experience, strength, and hope, I say, yeah, this is what I did, and this is how I got through it. Then that gives them the power to accept it, or even to accept themselves a little bit more, and have less judgment, less contempt for themselves, because they're looking at me and saying, well, dude, he embraced it, and they say, yeah, man, without that, I wouldn't be who I am. I mean, it's not that. And when we were talking earlier, and so speaking of Martin Buber and the Hasidic tradition, they would call somebody like me, somebody who has turned, somebody who has known evil and chose to turn away from it. And they revere somebody like me higher than they would revere a holy person who is really holy and knowledgeable, but never tasted of the sins. So it's to overcome that is a huge thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I also feel like when people share their own personal struggles, it makes them a lot more relatable, and it makes them come off a lot more honest than someone who's just like,
you're talking about authenticity. Yeah, you can. No one can be an expert in George but George. And so to the degree that I can share that, and it helps me, because that it helps me to own it. So everything I give, every time I talk, every time I do this, it's just making that habit more prevalent and more accessible. And see, this is the thing. We have these habits. Some habits are helpful, some are not. And so this self-inquiry, this self-honesty, for me, I have to reflect on it every day and keep reminding myself and keep questioning, am I still in alignment with who I say I am? Am I still living a principle-centered life? And, Rick Warren sold millions of copies of books, and his Principle-Centered Life book. principle-centered life, a purpose-centered life, I think is what he called
Yeah,
it.
I mean, you mentioned so many books. I know you mentioned Viktor Frankl, who read the book "Man's Search for Meaning." Great book. And you mentioned since your 41 years of sobriety, you've been reading a book a week, which is fascinating. But it makes sense because I've done at least 76 podcasts, and I've never been with someone who just mentioned so many books, which is awesome. I don't mind it. What's your favorite book, and what book out of all the books you read, what book had the most impact on your life, and why?
Yes, well, there's a lot of them, but I was asked this question at this gathering,
Yeah.
1,000 people, and without thinking, I said the Bible.
Yes.
And it was
Yeah.
like, ooh, whoa, I didn't expect that one. But I know so
Amen.
many books. A lot of those books, I can tell you the ones that I read when I was coming up. But those books, I said, and so then once the answer came out, that came out of that silence, right? The answer
Yeah.
came out. Then I said, oh, that makes sense because the acronym ASK, Jesus and Sermon on the Mount, ASK. Asking it shall be given to you. Seeking you shall find. Knocking it shall be
Yes.
opening to you. Come on, man. Come on,
Yes.
you still didn't know.
Yes.
I and the Father one. You know, you know, continual forgiveness and love everything. Come on, man.
Yes.
You don't need anything else. I mean, that's it right there. And
Amen.
and I could have said the same about the Buddha or whatever, but to me, and I said, well, that makes sense because it's in every hotel room. So you all can go back to the hotel room. You ain't got to download it. It's right there. It's right there. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's in your face.
Yeah.
It's in your face, dude. So that was it. But to me, I would say it depends on who you are, where you are, and then there's certain books that resonate with you. Now, in my own experience, I've gone back to the books that I've read when I first came into sobriety, like A Road Less Traveled, and obviously, a lot of psychology books. The Way of Man. Viktor Frankl's book on Man's Search for Meaning, and even going back to just whether it's the Quran or
Yeah.
the I Ching or studying the Torah or any of that stuff. It's
Yeah.
always good. But I did a lot of positive psychology. I read a lot of, even before I got in recovery, I was reading Earl Nightingale and that whole thing about these inspirational speakers like Zig Ziglar and Les Brown. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but also Joseph Campbell and
Yeah.
like Martin Luther King, and because I actually when he was going to school in Boston, I used to go to those freedom marches and sing those songs with
Oh
him,
wow.
stuff like that. I go way back, man.
That's so cool.
That's crazy, man. And
Whoa, that's so
like they were
cool.
saying, well,
Whoa.
he came up from Atlanta. No, dude, he was going to BU. He's at a BU,
Boston University, right? Yeah.
and he was still active in the community and stuff like that. I've done stuff with the Dalai
That's so
Lama with
cool.
my teachers and stuff, and so I've done a lot of different things. And when I think about it, is people say you had these amazing experiences, and
Yes.
I said, yeah, thank you. I said, but uh, I can't really take credit for it. I'm the spirit's moving through me, but I'll take credit
Yeah.
for getting out of the way and allow the spirit to flow through me, right?
Yeah.
But it's about being who you are, man. That's the ticket.
Yes.
That's the ticket. That's how I get out of a shooting gallery, and now I'm in the domain where winning NBA championships and working with people who are making transformation for not only themselves but for other people. But I'm doing what God put me here to do. Release the
Amen.
divine spark in each and every person. It's like the values that I can be counted on is to be, love, curiosity, wisdom, integrity, selfless service, compassion, courage. That which I can be counted on is to be loving with a warrior spirit, with a serving and compassionate heart, pursuing excellence and wisdom with grace and ease. So that's my child. I live to that. It's going to take me all life to release the divine spark. But my core values are going to be those values that allow me to access the Christ consciousness, the Buddha nature, the divine spark, the masterpiece within.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm so glad you said the Bible and the fact that you said it just naturally came out of you, because I think that was the answer that the audience needed to hear. That was the answer I needed to hear. They say the Bible stands for biblical instructions before leaving this earth. And every time I read the Bible, I get so much clarity on who I am, what I am, and what I'm supposed to do on this earth, which is deliver good news and spread good works to the people. You know what
That's
I'm
the
saying?
gospel, man. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
The gospel doesn't sell. You know, I was when I was working in prison with guys, this guy told me he had a friend of his that had two newspaper and it was called the Good News newspaper. It went out of business because people are not ready for that, man. They
No.
want to see somebody doing worse than they do, and they get, you know, and you can see with the social media and whatnot. We have to have, and this guy, Dr. David Hawkins, you know, he's passed, but he wrote a book called, Power versus Force,
Okay.
truth versus falsehood, and he talks about the idea that the man, we don't know truth from falsehood, and so you can be, have people. I was talking to a friend, and he was just really giving me sound bites from one of the news stations. I won't mention what it was. And it's like, man, people are not free thinkers. They're taking somebody else and somebody's telling them
Yes. Yes.
what to think. And, if you get programmed by TV, they say, you deserve a break today. Go to McDonald's. It's better in the Bahamas. Come on, man. But this is what we do. And we do it when we talk. And
I
so
agree.
to
Completely
me,
agree.
anytime I meet somebody, I talk about, let's focus on what we have alike, and let's focus on creating a space for everybody to be who they are,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I basically say, listen, I won't get into politics, but as long as it's principle centered, as long as they don't violate the Constitution and the rule of law, they got no problem with me. I'm just
Yes.
saying. And so I'm not getting into personalities, principles, not personalities. It's like, this is who we are. And so if we have people representing us who are not expressing the values that we hold dear, then they got to go. I
Yeah.
mean, we got to vote them out, or we got to take responsibility and not just say, well, he's in my tribe or she's in my tribe, therefore I'm going to tolerate that. No,
Yeah.
you can't do that. It's like, if it's not in alignment with how things are, if it's not for the highest good, then it's not to be done.
Well, I appreciate free thinkers like you, George, because I feel like, one, the conversations are a lot more original and fun. But two, I think that people who don't free think and are just pulling everything from Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, whatever they're getting I think a lot of it is coming from an ego where they haven't actually discovered their own selves.
That's
So
right.
it's just like a ego. Oh, I'm a Democrat, so I have to say, like, all these like, you're racist or this or that, or like, I'm a Republican, so I just gotta immediately agree with immigrations or whatever. Like all these like weird things, and I'm like, is this what you truly believe, or do you feel like you have to just get angry or whatever because everyone
Well,
else is doing that?
it's a hideout, and it's a way
Yeah,
for them not to take responsibility. Remember, I talked about authoritarianism or conformism. If
yeah,
you don't have an opinion, if you don't know, it's two things. what my people that work for me, they call them Georgisms. Uh, if you don't know who you are, you can end up being anybody. If
mm-hmm.
you don't know where you're going, you could end up going anywhere. So why
Mm.
not choose who you're being and where you're going? But that takes a lot of the discomfort I talked about, because life, the problem with problems are they hurt. But it's only by saying yes to the hurt, accepting it, and going
Yeah,
on it, that you get to peace and you get to feeling like you're your authentic self. Because the people who are doing that hiding out, they got to cut off parts of themselves, because if they don't, it's like they called it doubling during World War II. This guy, what's his name? Um, he wrote a book and he talked about doubling. And what would happen, when he meant by that, is you had these German soldiers that would go home. Lifton, his name was Lifton.
okay,
Um, they would be in the concentration camp, slamming babies' heads against the wall, and then
mm.
go home and playing with their kids.
Mm-mm.
So you have to cut off parts of yourself, or you have
Yes,
to deny things, and that's why he said a system of hideouts, because you're hiding from yourself, because you don't want to render accounts, you don't want to take
yeah,
responsibility for what you just did and what that's saying. And if you open your heart and listen to it, you'd have cognitive dissonance. You would know, because there's a part of us that knows when we're doing the wrong thing. But
Yes.
if you keep it, if you speak over it, it's a still small voice. So if you're
Yeah.
not in the community where you're being, where you know that, okay, so I'm going to be with Ike today, and I'm going to do this, and then come, and I can't talk to him if I do that, because
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you say, oh, weather's fine, I'm okay. I don't want to talk about anything, just, because you are trying to. And so for me to be different, or not be myself, I had to use drugs and alcohol. And of course I got injured, and that's how I got into the pain meds. But it's just not a feeling when you're not being real, man. It's like,
Yeah.
people might say it's the imposter syndrome, or they can have many names for it, but it takes a lot. It takes something. It takes that self-honesty and that continuous inquiry of continuing to make sure that you are living in alignment with who you say you are. Is that self, getting with yourself and being quiet with yourself and being clear with who you're being. That takes a lot, man. And you gotta be like, maybe you gotta be like me, where your ass has to be on fire. Excuse my language, but I call it ass on
No, it's
fire
okay.
motivation.
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't have a sense of urgency and the difficulty, the extremeness of discomfort and pain and suffering can be
Unbearable.
it could be a cause for wisdom, or getting to a place where you go to help others. And I learned that, and I still do that to this day. If I'm really, really funky and I'm challenged, I just go help somebody. That gets me out of
Mm.
my stuff. I call it, you forget yourself and service to find yourself.
Yes, interesting. When you're living for God, I feel like you're going against the world, honestly. Because I feel like what the Bible teaches and the principles from the Bible aren't the popular things to do. Like, for example, that example you gave of the Nazi killing people, he was conforming to the world, and because the world accepted that, he didn't even question it. You know what I'm saying? And so,
Well, that's a challenge, but that's where we are now, though.
yeah,
If you got to say no to that, even though you might get ostracized or kicked out of your group. That's telling you you're in the wrong group.
yeah.
And we got to get beyond everything, and we got to just get together and say, no, that's not to be done. That's not acceptable. It doesn't matter who you are. That's not who we are. That's not what I encourage. I'm
But and
not.
I think a lot of that also comes towards the type of people you're surrounded by. Because if you're around a bunch of gangsters and we're talking this, they're like, "Oh, get that boys. What are you already talking about?" You know what I'm saying? But if you're around like good, God-fearing people, they're gonna, or just spiritually inclined people, they're gonna be like, "No, this is wrong." You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it depends the type of people you're talking to. They're gonna normalize.
Oh, there's no question.
Yes. Yeah.
There's no question. But the interesting thing is that we can have conversations. I'm thinking of the brother that used to go to these Ku Klux Klan people and talk.
Oh, I
Yeah.
know who you're talking about.
See, people just want to be heard, and you got to give them an alternative.
Yeah.
I've worked with people who are racist, and 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 I didn't change who I was, and then at some point they started to see me who I was.
You're talking about Daryl Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah, him. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the conversations that you have with people on the street, and talk to them about, what do we have in common, or let's focus on what we really want. We all want the same thing, but we think that we have to be at odds. And what they do is they divide and conquer. They separate us, and they keep us fighting against for the crumbs, and they're getting all of the, they're getting the gourmet meals and everything else. And so we have to understand that it's just, just be still, and your heart would tell you. And that's why people can't be still. That's why people don't want to be awake, because if they are, then they got to accept the fact
Yeah.
that they hid themselves, like that story with Adam said to God, I hid myself, and by hiding from I hid from you.
Yeah.
By hiding from you, I'm hiding from myself.
And you want to know, I think the root of all these issues that we're talking about, whether it is drug addiction, murder, and all that, I think it's a lack of acceptance of your own emotions. Because I think when we're running away from our emotions, we're assuming that guilt is a bad thing, or feeling ashamed isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I think that lack of acceptance might a continual like, oh well, let me not face myself. Let me just keep doing the bullshit. Let me keep watching pornography, or let me keep whatever is not good for me. Let me just keep doing that because I don't want to have to deal with guilt. I don't want to have to deal with depression. I don't want to have to deal with feeling anxious. But I don't think those emotions are necessarily bad. I think those emotions are signals for for us to maneuver our
So
lives.
in some traditions, in the Buddhist tradition, we talk about moral shame and moral guilt.
Okay.
So in other words, it's telling you that you know better. And you don't have to do that. You don't have to shame yourself, because when you get out of integrity, or let's say you do something you're ashamed of, you can be forgiven for it just by accepting it and then changing your ways.
Yeah.
See, that's too daggone simple. But it's like, so moral shame is like, like when I grew up, and it's interesting because I was just, I was hanging out with my roommates from college, couple of guys that we went to school years ago, and I went with Dr. J in college. I don't know if you knew that, but he was here in Boston coaching the 3x3, and so I got to hang out with him and talk. But even though we haven't seen each other, it's been a couple of years, but my two roommates, Julius and Al, and we're talking, and even though we don't see each other, we hold each other accountable, man. It's like, dude, man, what are you doing? You ain't representing. But we don't have to do it because obviously we're all doing really good. But the fact is that I know I don't just represent me. I represent, my family, my buddies, my hood, but all people really in my mind. So when I do something that's not quite cool, I'm supposed to feel guilt. I'm supposed to feel first, whatever it is, around it. But it's not like I'm shameful, I'm guilt. It's just telling me that I'm off track. I've gotten off true north, and I can just make amends, apologize, and change my behavior. And I love what Dr. Maya Angelou said. She said, when you know better, you do better. So it's real simple. So forgiveness is so huge. Forgiving self and others, man, it is so huge, because we're going to make mistakes. We're going to get it wrong. But the challenge is, can we ask ourselves, what's the lesson, and can we do better the next time? Can we learn from it? Use it as a lesson, as something we have to learn. Because if you don't learn it, the universe keeps giving it to you.
Yeah,
if you want to call it. But once you learn it, then that's it. But it's not a bad thing. It's actually a opportunity for transformation.
There's a quote that says, "Pain will stop teaching you until you learn this lesson."
That's it.
I really like that quote. And that quote, I'm sure you had to learn that with your drug addiction. I had my
I still have to learn it, because I don't know about you, man. It's like it's like, and well, that's why I guess physicians can't heal their family, because the family, man, they just know how to mess with you, or sometimes your friends and other people, man. It's like, yeah, I get humbled every day, brother.
Same with me.
Like, and then part of me is like, dude, why are you acting like they're gonna hear you? They can't hear you, dude. They can't hear you. But that's why they got this word called patience. Yeah. That's why they got this word said, let go, let God. Live and let live. Because otherwise they'll wear you out, man. You will get out trying to get them to do the right thing, or acting like they shouldn't be the way they are. They're the way they are. And you got to accept it, and accept it. Once you accept it, then you're not thinking they're going to do it differently.
Yes. Well, even that's a form of acceptance. Accepting the fact that you can't change somebody, instead of trying to speak wisdom and insight into everyone, and then hoping that your words are going to magically just change them.
No, they can't hear you. So I have to accept that I don't accept. That's a good one, huh?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, this was a great conversation, George, and I'm really enjoying this. Before I end the conversation, I just want to ask you, and then something that's been on my mind, and it's essentially, for you personally, like, what does living with purpose look like for you? Now that because you've lived like an amazing life. I'm sure you reflected on all these things, and you got to work with Kobe. You got to work with great trainers. You've even done freedom walking for MLK, like, and I'm deeply inspired by the great work you have done. What does living with purpose look like for you now?
It's to unlock the divine spark, unlock, help people unlock and release the divine spark that's inside of them. I mean, that's what I said. That's my purpose. Anybody I meet, can I be a light unto yourself and others. I think Jesus said, I think Buddha said it in different ways, but it's like, for me, it's like, I want to model the behavior of being, getting beyond this illusion of separateness, and just realize everybody has a masterpiece, and my job is to relate to them as they could be, not as they are. So that's for my purpose, is just to be myself and to do, the Buddha talked about do good, avoid evil, and purify your mind and heart. And Jesus talked about, to me, it's combination of that and continual forgiveness and to love everything. I mean, it's that simple. So so that can manifest in a multiplicity of ways.
Yes.
Okay. And so, but to me, it's that attunement and application. Just be loved, man, and just embrace everybody. Remind people they some bad mofos. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. I don't care who you are.
That's your purpose.
Oh man, you work with these masterpieces. You work with these amazing people like MJ, Kobe, and Shaq, and all these amazing people.
All you did for Kobe was you reminded him he's a bad mofo. You didn't do anything. You just reminded him he's a bad mofo. That's all you had to do. I think that's not hard to do for Kobe.
Here's the point, and I say people said, I've been around amazing, elite performers all my life, and I'm around them right now.
Oh man, I appreciate that, man.
You see what I'm saying? We all have that potential, that capacity, but we have to express it in our own way. So for somebody else, it might be they're the best teacher, or they're the best dad, or brother, or podcaster. I mean, you see what I'm saying? Yeah. And but you're expressing yourself, and you're doing something for the highest good.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be some esoteric thing. It's like where you are, and it's interesting, and maybe it's good to end on this. And the way of man, he talked about the things that we can do that angels can't do. You know what that is?
No, please expand.
We can make something holy through holy intent. We can let God in wherever we are. We can hallow it. We can make it holy.
Yeah. That's why as I'm getting older, I used to be a lot attached to what I'm doing instead of what I'm being. I used to be honestly, when I first started this podcast, it was very ego driven. I'm like, I'm gonna have some of the biggest and the greatest guests on, and everyone's gonna see how smart I am. And now I don't really care for that. If people do see that, great. But now it's not that. And even when I'm also a real estate investor, I used to get so obsessed with how many properties I'm getting and whatnot. And now I'm not more in tune to how I'm being in while I'm doing those things, so that the spirit of goodness is there. You know what I'm saying? And in that, I'm experiencing more peace.
Yeah. You don't want to be one of those cats that they talk about. I forget where it is in the Bible, but he said it'd be easier for you to put a camel through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. But we can, that was written thousands of years ago, so we can update that and say, a person who is self-centered, or the ego, or whatever, because there's some people out there that have a lot of money, but they do a lot of good things with it. People don't know, and a lot of them are athletes, but the media is not interested in foundations. They're interested in people going to strip malls or getting a fight with their girlfriend or stuff like that. They're not really interested in catching people that are giving back to the community. I mean, LeBron is giving. I mean, I don't know how many kids he's educating, and Tiger Woods has done stuff. And MJ, all of these guys are doing things. When I work with these athletes, I realize they all have foundations and they're all giving back. Nobody knows about it.
No one knows. Yep. No one knows. And unfortunately, that's the stuff that doesn't go viral. Unfortunately, and
that's not the gospel. They're not interested in spreading the gospel. It's just that simple.
That's why I say when you're living for God, you're going against the world, because no one like promotes this type of stuff. And just to go about your point about chasing wealth, one thing I've learned is, like, I feel like even chasing wealth and chasing money is low key a form of a lack of acceptance of who you are, because you're actually running. I found myself, when I'm chasing wealth, I'm running from who I am, and I'm seeking validation from the world to be like, wow, look at this guy. He has so many properties. He has this. He's a millionaire. Like, I'm seeking validation. It's I've had to journal, really reflect, like, why am I doing this? Why do I keep saying I want to be a millionaire? Like for what? You know what I'm saying? And that was a lot of introspection I did. But I think a lot of times when we're chasing wealth, we just justify it with, oh, I'm making money, and not really are conscious of why we're really doing it.
Yeah. Well, let me share something with you. In my process, being self-employed and whatnot, there's times when I ended up doing gigs I didn't want to do, but I had to do them because I needed the money. And then I realized whenever I got, I would say, financial insecurity, I focus on serving and the money comes. So maybe there's something there for you.
Yes.
Yeah, you're doing it. You just got to catch yourself doing it and realize, okay, this is for the highest good. It's not how much money you have. It's how what you do, because money is just energy.
Yes.
And so if we have more people, like I was just reading about this woman, I don't know what college it was. It might have been the Einstein College of Medicine. And her husband died and whatnot. And she donated $1 billion to the school so a lot of people can go to school for free. $1 billion. Now, they said there were like 8 or 16 billionaires at one point in the United States. Now we have over 800 billionaires.
Wow.
And I'm not seeing
that.
I'm not seeing, and some of them are doing it because a lot of people sometimes they want to do things without people knowing about it.
Yeah.
About that. All of the wealth that's going on, and people realizing that we have enough to feed everybody. And we just but I'm not judging, because judge not lest ye be judged. And that's one of the biggest challenges I have, is not judging myself or others. Because that not only does it affect my connection with them, but it connects my connection with the higher power over my own spirituality.
Yeah, well, that what you just said with the donation from that lovely woman reminds me. Do you know who Robert Smith is? He's one of the richest black men.
Yeah. I know of him.
He paid for a bunch of people's Howard's tuition once they graduated, so he can absolve them from debt, student loan debt.
I remember that. Yeah, I heard about that.
That was super dope. I was like, that, but again, that doesn't go viral. Or like knowing, like, or like maybe you talk about it for like a couple hours, whatever. I'm reminding people that so we can set our intentions on being given. And I really appreciate what you told me about. And I think a lot of people need to hear this. If we're dealing with financial insecurity, maybe due to a lack, maybe we should stop asking ourselves, how can I get more money? And how can I be more serving? That should be the frame and attitude. Yeah. Honestly, I need to hear that from myself, to be honest.
Yeah. Like, well, me too.
Yeah.
See, you don't understand. I'm speaking to you. I'm speaking to me. I'm reminding us, this is who we are. And this is how we can be really, really impactful. And that is it. And we got to figure out how we can do more for each other. But I'm really clear about, you got to be selfish to be selfless.
Yes. Okay.
See that once again, but I think in part of the interpretation of the teachings is that, you gotta love your neighbor more than you love yourself. But I think it's implicit in there, if you really hear what's being offered, like I am the other one, well, there's no way you can love them without loving yourself. But if you love yourself first, you'll have more to give them. And you won't be loving them to hide out from yourself, or to deny yourself, or to say, I'm not worthy because I'm being selfish by focusing on me. And that's why I had to work with some of my clients and tell them, no, you need to be selfish to be selfless. And it's either or, but you got to begin, because if you don't have anything, how are you going to give something? And you got to be it. So if you're not valuing yourself and you're communicating to somebody else, who's to say you're not giving them that feeling of lack along with the money?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden now they don't like it, because you can see people who have a poor attitude. That they have the lottery. It's because they see themselves as always being poor. They don't see themselves as abundant. They don't see themselves worthy of abundance.
Yeah.
And so as a result, even if they have money, they're gonna blow it, because that's who they think they are, instead of realizing, no, I'm abundance beyond money. And even though I don't have money, I could be rich because I'm being my true self and I'm doing what I want to do and I'm happy. You have people who have all this money and they're not happy.
We are enough because we have God. It's just that simple. I just want to say, and
where do you find them? In your own temple.
Yes.
And that's in here.
Yes, sir.
And there was a book called, if you see Buddha in the road, kill him. I think it was based on that principle, that if you're looking for that's idol worship, really, if you really think about it. If you're thinking something out here, whether it's a statue or a person or some concept, rather than realizing that, you just have to get into that consciousness, the Christ consciousness, the Buddha consciousness, the divine spark, that energy. And when you get in there, you realize that there's this illusion of separateness, but you and the other are one. So when I'm relating, if one person is in poverty, then we're all in poverty.
Yes.
One person is not loved. And then, so if we start seeing it that way, and of course people will say things like, oh man, you're naive, or you don't do that. But you don't understand, man. I lived in hell for a lot of years, man. And when I was doing, so as bad as things are, man, can't even touch what I was going through.
Yeah.
Can't even touch it. And so I'm not saying it like this is nothing. I'm just saying that we can handle a lot more than we think. Yeah. And we don't have to go through this if we decide we want to do it differently.
Yes. Yeah. And I can tell you're not just speaking from all the books you've read. You're speaking from experience, like real life experience, not just
the books help me understand and help me communicate.
And all those humbling and ass whoopings made you a bad mofo. That's what happened.
Man,
that's what
listen, I tell, no struggle, no swag.
Yeah,
I earned that. The swag, I got the swag because I struggled.
Yes, sir.
No struggle, no swag. No pressure, no diamonds.
Yes, sir.
Pressure is a privilege. Those who have much is expected.
Yes,
it's not just about giving things away. It's about being able to tolerate discomfort.
Yes,
and say yes to the right things.
And rejoice in our sufferings. That's what it's about. Yes,
That's
sir.
it.
Well, this was awesome. We were in so much sync, and I did not expect this conversation to be so fun and optimistic and insightful. How can people reach out to you if they're
thank you. So GeorgeMumford.com is my website. I got a YouTube channel, and if you Google me, I'm all over the place. I mean, if they really want, they can go to my website. Or if they want to communicate, they can just send an email to connect@georgemumford.com. But I don't get to talk like this in most podcasts. So I want to acknowledge that people don't understand that when, a jazz musician or somebody, when they're performing, the interactive audience has a lot to do with the performance. And what I like to say is, the listening you created allowed me to find myself and express myself. So thank you for that.
Thank you, man. You don't understand, bro. Just like you said, you're here to be yourself, to help others be yourself. I think that's what this platform is. And I want this platform to be a space where they too can be themselves.
There you go.
Thank you for.
I appreciate that, man. I never know what I'm getting into, so I just show up. I just show up and say, "Okay, I don't know. Well, I had fun today. I got better today, and I'm just gonna be me." And
no, and likewise, I don't. A lot of these conversations require faith, because I don't know you, you don't know me.
Yeah,
I'm hoping the greatness comes out of it.
Yeah, so
maybe this was a great conversation.
Yeah, so I'll share with this. So I was interviewed by two Buddhist monks.
Okay.
About a month ago. And once again, it's like, I didn't even know. I said, "Oh, I got a thing. Oh, you got a podcast right now." So, I didn't know about it. So I got on the podcast. I had no idea who I was going to talk to or whatever. And we were talking, and they said to me, we talked to a lot of meditation teachers, and you're different, man. I said, "Yeah, that's the spirit."
Yeah.
And they got it. They could feel like, they said, there's an energy, there's an enthusiasm, there's a aliveness. to what I
Mm-hmm.
was saying, and I took that as a compliment. But I said, yeah, but I'm not going to do it the way they're doing it, because if I did it the way they're doing it, then they don't need me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I got to figure out how to be me in
Yes.
that space. And I'm glad that they noticed that, because to me, without the spirit is the life, the mind is the builder, the physical is the result. That's what
Mm-hmm.
Casey said. I believe it. Everything begins with spirit. Without the spirit, I wouldn't be clean. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in this conversation, I believe your spirit is definitely felt, and hope the spirit is felt in me, and I'm hopefully the listeners watching in this, they can feel your spirit, your excitement, and your enthusiasm for life, and your ability to inspire is great. Thank you.
That's it, man. Well, I appreciate you inviting me on. If you didn't invite me on, I wouldn't be here.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Okay.
All right,
Well,
man.
anyways, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. And remember, everyone, if God is for us, who can be against us? Thank you.
Amen.
Amen.